The moment my boss leaned forward in the middle of our argument, the air between us cracked like glass under pressure, and everything I thought I knew about power, boundaries, and my own guarded heart shattered at once. 1 second we were standing in her office with anger hanging thick as smoke, and the next, her lips met mine with a force that wasn't reckless but deliberate, trembling with something unspoken, something old and aching. My mind screamed to pull away, but my heart stood frozen, because in that impossible second I felt seen in a way no one had ever managed before. When she pulled back, her eyes glossy and raw, she told me the kiss was meant only for me, not as a mistake, not as an impulse, but as a truth she could no longer bury. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how unexpectedly life can change, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel The Kindness Chronicles, because stories like this exist to remind us that even the most broken moments can become beginnings. Before that day, my life had been a carefully stacked tower of responsibilities, built on years of disappointment and quiet endurance. I had grown used to being invisible, useful but unnoticed, the kind of person whose value was measured in how much weight they could carry without complaint. I worked long hours not because I loved my job, but because work gave me structure, and structure kept my past from catching up with me. My boss was known throughout the company as sharp, intimidating, and emotionally untouchable. She had earned her authority through relentless discipline, and everyone respected her, but no one truly knew her. To me, she was simply the person whose approval I chased without realizing why, the person whose disappointment cut deeper than it should have. Our arguments had been building for months, small cracks forming beneath polite professionalism. She pushed me harder than anyone else, and I responded with quiet resistance, working late, fixing problems, absorbing blame that wasn't mine. I told myself it was ambition, that I wanted to prove myself, but the truth was more complicated. Somewhere along the way, I had started seeing her not just as my boss, but as someone whose approval felt personal, almost intimate, even though we never crossed a line. She noticed everything, from the way I flinched when meetings turned hostile to the nights I slept at my desk. Her concern was subtle, hidden behind criticism and sharp expectations, but it was there, and it confused me. The argument that changed everything wasn't explosive at first. It was quiet, controlled, the kind that hurts more because every word is measured. She accused me of holding back, of hiding behind competence instead of stepping into leadership. I accused her of demanding loyalty without offering trust. The words cut deep because they were true, and because neither of us wanted to admit how much we cared about the outcome. As the tension rose, years of unspoken frustration surfaced, and suddenly we were no longer just boss and employee arguing about work. We were two people confronting the walls we had built to survive. When she kissed me, it wasn't romantic in the way movies portray. It was raw and trembling, filled with fear and relief at the same time. It was the kind of kiss that felt like confession, like surrender. My heart pounded with panic and longing, because I knew that whatever came next would change everything. She pulled away quickly, as if startled by her own courage, but her eyes held mine with an honesty that stripped away every pretense. She explained, without words meant for performance, that she had spent years denying herself anything that felt personal, anything that could hurt. She told me that the kiss wasn't about power but about finally acknowledging what had been growing quietly between us. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. We agreed to step back, to reassess boundaries, to be careful. But careful didn't mean easy. Every glance carried weight, every silence spoke louder than words. I questioned myself constantly, wondering if I had imagined the depth of that moment, if I had mistaken vulnerability for affection. At the same time, something inside me had shifted. For the first time, I felt brave enough to consider that I deserved to be seen not just for what I could do, but for who I was. As weeks turned into months, our relationship transformed in subtle ways. She listened more, not just to my work, but to my ideas, my fears, my quiet hopes. I found myself speaking up, taking risks, trusting my instincts. Outside the office, I started confronting parts of my life I had neglected, reconnecting with people I had pushed away, allowing myself rest without guilt. The kiss had been a spark, but the real change came from what it awakened in me, the belief that vulnerability wasn't weakness, and that connection didn't have to be earned through suffering. Eventually, we addressed what had happened openly and responsibly. It wasn't simple, and it wasn't a fairy tale. There were policies to follow, reputations to protect, and difficult decisions to make. She chose to step back from being my direct supervisor, prioritizing integrity over convenience. That decision, more than the kiss itself, showed me the depth of her character. She wasn't asking me to risk everything for her, she was willing to risk something herself so that neither of us would have to live with regret or imbalance. That I and the space that followed, something gentler grew. We talked not as boss and employee, but as two people learning how to be honest after years of armor. We shared stories of childhood disappointments, of dreams abandoned for safety, of moments when kindness could have changed everything but didn't. In those conversations, I realized how similar we were beneath our different exteriors. We had both learned to survive by being strong, and we were both exhausted by it. The true turning point came not with another dramatic moment, but with quiet consistency. She supported my growth without hovering. I respected her boundaries without resentment. Trust replaced tension, and admiration replaced fear. Whether our connection would eventually become romantic mattered less than the fact that it had already transformed us. I no longer felt invisible, and she no longer felt alone at the top. By the time a year had passed, my life looked nothing like it once had. I had taken on a leadership role, not because I was pushed, but because I believed in myself enough to accept it. I carried myself differently, with a steadiness that came from knowing my worth wasn't conditional. She had softened too, allowing warmth into her leadership, becoming someone people didn't just respect, but felt safe around. The kiss that once felt like a dangerous secret had become a symbol of a moment when two guarded hearts chose honesty over fear. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing sometimes begins in the most unexpected ways, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles, because your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. As this story comes to an end, I want to ask you for one more thing. Before you leave, please comment the line, "Kindness changed everything," if you believe that even a single moment of courage, compassion, or honesty can rewrite a life. Your words matter more than you know, and they might be the light someone else is searching for today.